primarily a question for Hazel, but I'm sure there'll be some discussion around Chloe Smith as well. As women in politics, do you find that your gender is a help or a hindrance to your political career?
Okay, as a woman in politics, do you feel it's more of a help than a hindrance to your career? Hazel, let's go to you first.
You're not going to ask Iain, are you?
Well, I'll have to at some point, I guess.
I think probably my height is more of a hindrance than my gender. The number of articles that are written by Hazel Blears, 4 feet 11 inches tall, is unbelievable.
What's your correct height?
I'm 4 foot 11 inches tall. They do report it correctly, but it's pint-sized and it's diminutive. Right. I think Iain Dale it was who called me, what was it? I think it was a squirrel or a
chipmunk.
A chipmunk, that was it, a chipmunk, yeah.
Let's not go down that road. No.
Which, you know, I mean, I've got a good sense of humour, it's fine. In a way, it's a double-edged sword being a woman. First of all, you get noticed more because you stand out because there's less of us. But equally, it's, you know, it has its downside because you do get more personal attention on what you look like, your dress, your mannerisms, how you present yourself. And I think that doesn't help particularly. You know, it was our party that brought in all women shortlists. That was controversial. None of us would have wanted to do that. But that massive influx of 110 Labour women in 1997, I think, did make a big difference. And I want to see that continue because until we've got some kind of parity where, you know, your gender isn't a particular issue, then I don't think that we'll be representative of this country as a whole. And I think we've still got a long way to go.
Just a minor point on that. There was some comments earlier on this year along the lines of you felt that the Labour Party should have a female leader. Is that correct, or were those comments completely taken out of context, or you didn't even say that, just to clarify?
I mean, I stood for the deputy leadership, so I clearly thought that we should have a woman deputy leader.
A deputy leader, yes, but a prime minister or leader?
Well, I think that, you know, I would have liked to have seen Barbara Castle be the first Labour prime minister, and she never got there. And I think that it would be good to have a woman prime minister, but not for your own sake, but actually what you can bring to politics, your background, your ideas, your philosophy, your energy, all of those things are incredibly important. And I think that women do bring something different to politics, and therefore it's important that we encourage particularly young women to come forward as well.
Okay, Douglas, let's come to you next. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, there are still a shamingly small number of women in our parliament. I think the Iraqi parliament has 25% of its MPs are women, and we have less than that in our parliament. I think that's pretty shaming. That said, I mean, look, like most people, I mean, you know, you want Parliament to represent the people and represent the country generally more. But when you push these things, I mean, the sort of positive discrimination things, they can go badly wrong when people are promoted or are given seats simply because of their gender or indeed their colour or their background or anything else. You know, it doesn't always come to any good. I mean, I was much amused, by the way, when David Cameron was talking about the fact that Chloe Smith represented a whole new brand of politics. I mean, he might like to wish that we'd all forget about Margaret Thatcher. But we haven't, and it is extraordinary. I mean, the party that provided us with the first female prime minister, love her or loathe her, it seems to keep on presenting women as if it's an entirely new idea. No one else ever thought about it. And look, it is a serious problem when people are promoted just because of something like their gender. And I think that Hazel would probably agree that when it has happened in her party, and I don't name any names, that it has happened on occasions possibly, it doesn't end up with great results.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on this question?
I'm not talking about Hazel, by the way. I thought you were.
I didn't think you were, actually. There was somebody else, a deputy leader of some sort. I can't think which person.
I was thinking of a Home Secretary.
Oh, right. Well, different story altogether. Any comments at all? If you'd like to raise your hand and come to the front, if you do have any.
Thank you. I think it's really difficult because, yes, although positive discrimination can be a really unhelpful thing in politics and indeed in kind of any aspect of our society, it still seems that even though, you know, women are achieving just as well, if not better, in education, we still have fewer women leaders coming forward in every aspect of our society, not just politics. And it would be really good to hear some constructive steps which we can use as a society to move forward, because if positive discrimination isn't working and yet you're saying we still need women leaders, I want to know if you have any ideas about how that could happen.
Thank you very much. Iain, let's go to you.
I want to see the best people for the job, and I really couldn't care whether they were male, female, black, white, Asian, yellow with purple spots. And I think we're now, in the Conservative Party at least, fostering an atmosphere in which that actually does happen. If you look at my council group in Salford, we have a majority of women, including the leader, including the deputy leader, including the chief whip. It does take time to change a parliamentary party, but I'm not too worried whether men are selected, whether women are selected, as long as we're actually getting the best people. And I think if we actually open the selection process up, then we do actually find that women will come through, that the talented women will rise to the top, just the same as the talented men have done over the time.
I'm interested in what Hazel thinks about this. There is an argument that Westminster itself is, as it were, a sort of male-ridden environment, which not because just the majority of MPs are male, but that in its nature at the moment it still feels that women sort of have to push through it to get access. I don't know if that's still felt by your generation.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there 12 years now, and you'd think that I would feel comfortable at home, part of the place, and I don't. And I think that's partly because of the nature of the building, the architecture, the wood panels. We've still got the men in tights, the messengers.
There's a halfway house.
Yeah, halfway house, men in tights. But the whole place is actually redolent of an age that we really ought to have put behind us. When I first went to Parliament, I think one of the speeches I made, I said that I thought the house was lovely, but it should be a museum, and that perhaps we ought to have a purpose-built, modern place where you could have some modern politics. And the speaker, who was Betty Boothroyd at the time, was so outraged. She didn't call me for about 4 months to speak again because she was obviously so proud of the House of Commons. But I still hold that view. I mean, you'd have no public support for spending money to build a new building. But I do think the environment in which you conduct your politics does really have an influence on the way that you debate, the issues that you raise, the kind of thing that goes on. And I think that our environment is redolent of a bygone age, and I think that it is masculine and it's class-ridden. You look at the House of Commons now, and you look at MPs as well. It's not just women. There's hardly anybody now from a working class background who's come up through politics to the highest level. I think, myself, Alan Johnson, Jackie Smith to some extent, we are basically the few people who lived in our constituencies and come up through a very different route, and I think politics is the poorer for it.
Well, OK, let's come back to the question. I know we can't quite ask you because you may not be, obviously, probably not a member of Parliament yourself, but what are your views on what the panel has said, especially perhaps Hazel, obviously?
I think there needs to be a kind of change in the general attitude towards women in society overall. I mean, I think the representation of women on the benches really highlights it, but I don't necessarily think it's always a kind of political attitude that's actually stopping women from getting there. I think there might be much more of a deep-rooted thing, which God knows when it's going to fix itself.
Thank you very much.